From our studios in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans, this is Louisiana Eats. I'm Poppy Tooker. In the 1970s, Sharon Dymond was a young artist doing her thing in New Orleans, running a small gallery and working freelance. Providentially, in 1974, her pen and ink drawing of an umbrella-wielding second liner provided the artwork for Jazz Fest's first poster. Then one day, Sharon discovered a treasure trove of forgotten product labels from the 19th and early 20th century that sent her career in an entirely new direction. She had the idea to reproduce the beautiful chromolithographed labels on postcards and ceramic serveware, and Fabled Labels was born. Sharon's here to talk about those antique labels' artistry and how many of them provide a glimpse into early New Orleans coffee history. How did Fabled Labels come to be?
Through a family connection, I started working extensively as a picture framer for the Cabildo, Friends of the Cabildo, that they supported the Louisiana State Museum at the Cabildo, housed in the Cabildo, and I would frame all their art that they would sell at their annual fundraising event around Christmas time. And they had all these wonderful old labels, uh, old cigar labels. Uh, the Tomcat label is a famous label. Have you ever seen, you remember that? It's sun-kissed oranges, and it has a beautiful tuxedo Tomcat on it. And I had one of those to frame. I asked my friend Betty Moran, was one of the people that founded the CAC, ask her where she got them, and she would not tell me.
Ah,
That little rascal. So I had the label, and it had a little tiny, a bit of script in like very small type that said Stecker Trong Schmidt SF. So I lived in the library, the main library by City Hall. And I looked up the city directories there. I figured that must be San Francisco. And I found Stecker Trong Schmidt, their phone number in the library. Called them up. The man that answered said, "How nice to hear a Southern accent." Why are you calling? I said, where can I find these wonderful old sun-kissed labels? They were crate labels. And he said, they're all over the place, but I can tell you where there's some much cooler labels. I used to work at this company in New Orleans called Wally Company, and they have been in business since the 19th century, 1880s or something, and they have the most amazing labels you'll ever see. You go and see Dudley Simpson and tell him Archie sent you. So that's exactly what I did. So the man was really nice, he was a VP or something like that at the company. It was on Chapatula Street. It was a very, very old building. And it was really dusty, and just, the way New Orleans, these wonderful places that you discover are.
yes.
And I walked in there, and he had a bank of wooden cabinets. So they got some tools and they wedged them open.
The only problem was some old machinery had been stored in front of the cabinets, and all the cabinet drawer handles had been removed. Undaunted, Sharon asked nearby pressmen for help.
I was just stunned because I had had a background in graphic design, especially with my mother, who was an illustrator from the 40s. So I knew instantly that this was an amazing design archive. But the most amazing part was the coffee collection. Do you know we had like 2,900 coffee importers in New Orleans at the turn of the 20th century?
No.
Just incredible. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
And so the three most most important parts of the collection are the sugar cane, the coffee, and the seafood.
What was what you found at the Wally Company like in depth and scope?
Thousands of different companies.
Wow.
But I was most interested in the graphic quality.
Mm.
And so those are the ones that I took. I left many there with them. And I got one of each of the ones that I didn't consider graphically important, but could be historically important. I got those for the State Museum. And it's online. They have all the ones that they have online so you can see them.
Sharon's personal collection eventually came to include more than 700 labels. Amazingly, most of the collection was the work of one man, Wally Company's head artist, Frederick Susis von Ehren. He was so brilliantly talented, he not only created labels, but was sought after to design intricate Rex Ball invitations, too.
He started with the company when it opened its doors in 1886. He was German, and when he was in his prime, the U.S. Treasury kept a file on him because he was considered one of five engravers in the country capable of duplicating U.S. currency.
Wow!
Yes, ma'am.
How many years did Von Aaron work in New Orleans and influence the design and the look of labels?
Oh, I think New Orleans, the way New Orleans looks now, has a lot to do with him. He started in 1886. He worked at the company until they forced him to retire in 1952 at the age of 91.
Decades later, when Sharon found Von Aaron's labels, she knew they still had commercial value. Trademarking the name Fabled Labels, she got to work.
I started out selling them as postcards, just reproducing them as regular standard size
And you
postcards.
called them past cards, huh?
Fast cards, that's also one of my trademarks.
Let's talk coffee labels. What was the place of that Louisiana coffee label?
The first Louisiana was a Riley Taylor label, and I have that first Louisiana label. And I have also a Riley Taylor label called Eye Opener, which was just, I mean, it had what they call bronzing on it that gave it a quality of having gold leaf on the label. It was real ritzy. Apparently, these coffee companies, all kinds of hotels had their own labels. And these 2,900 coffee importers were selling to grocery stores, general stores all over the South, in all the rural places in Louisiana, all the hotels and the restaurants, and they somehow got these restaurants and these hotels to have their own brands. Like there's the Jockey Club brand. That's how they marketed it. They marketed to all these little entities, these little grocery stores. They marketed their house brands and stuff. And like there's a French opera label,
Oh my.
which apparently is probably what they served when people went to the French opera, you know?
Wow.
And there's a Montleon label,
Oh.
coffee label. And in 1916, there was a company called the Cuban Coffee Company that put out a label called Suffragette. Yes, it has strength. Women's rights. This is 1916. We got the vote in 1920. Okay.
Wow.
Can you imagine? I mean, New Orleans was cutting edge. It was a cosmopolitan city, very sophisticated, very influential nationally, internationally. They imported this coffee from Central America. So they had all these like Mr. Zatarant, Mr. Zamuri, and people like that that had the United Fruit. And I used to correspond with and talk to all these people from these old companies. Now they're all gone, you know.
How many coffee labels do you believe you have in your collection?
Probably, probably 150, maybe 200.
So they really do
Yeah,
make up a significant part.
significant. And I have about the same number of sugar labels, not nearly as many seafood labels, but those are the two big ones, coffee and sugar. And the coffee is just, it gives the most wonderful history. Look at that fabulous, desirable label, which became French Market. It has a very detailed engraving of the original French Market, where ships would actually dock at the original French Market and they would offload coffee right there at the market before we had these real high levies.
What is the origin of that beautiful image that French Market uses?
Well, if you look at it, it is a drawing, a very detailed drawing of people having coffee at the French market. There are piles of bananas, there are piles of watermelons, there are people dressed in their nice clothes, having coffee. There's a ship out there, sailing steamship, and there are these dray horses hauling away New Orleans Coffee Company, which I believe the Rileys bought. Yeah, that
They
was
did.
French Market. Yeah, and so the Rileys have consolidated a New Orleans coffee history, really.
Well, what a wonderful tale it is that you have
Oh,
told
thank
us.
you.
And so, Sharon, if people want to learn more, they should just visit fabledlabels.com.
That's right. That's right. And they will get a link to my current product line, which is manufactured by Zazzle. The graphics are nice, and it's New Orleans history.